Perfect. Welcome everyone. Today I have the pleasure of hosting Dayanidhi and Manohar. Both are founders from nCore. You already know the popular game here, but might not know the studio behind it. So this might be an interesting take on learning more behind the inception, the process that happens behind the scene. So welcome, gentlemen. Pleasure to host you. Any opening words that you guys want to throw in before we dive into some shitty ass questions?
Yeah, thanks for hosting us, Mayank, Devashish, and hello to the whole team. Yeah, I and Mayank have been speaking for quite some time now, and when he sent an email saying I'm, doing this for our current cohort and may have some from the previous cohorts, I was really excited to come here, and I really like interacting with those who are on the learning path and share our experiences and then answer any questions. So it's really good and cool to be here. Thanks for hosting us, Mike.
Perfect. Manoj?
So I'll just say one sentence. I hope we had some sort of organizations or like you guys are training college students or people interested in game development, right? So I wish I had something like this when I was doing my engineering. I would have definitely gotten to here much earlier, but never late then.
You just stole, like, the my normal opening spiel in the orientation session that I have with every cohort. I wish like 12, 13 years back, somebody in my engineering told me I could do this and I would have saved so many years of my life. So I think now with sort of proliferation of information with YouTube and so much exposure in terms of different diverse fields as well, whether you are in Chinchpokli or some corner of Assam, you still have access to knowing that, oh, I can pursue my passion in this interesting field. Whereas earlier, even mainstream colleges didn't have any clue at all that something like this existed, right? Um, so I think, yeah, so I really love that spot on statement. So I think cool, we'll dive in, and guys, just feel free to throw in whatever questions you might have. I think there were some questions on LinkedIn, so I'll pick them up as well in between. So before we just dive in, I think if either of you guys want to share the inception story of nCore, at least I personally don't know. I don't know if you guys have shared this publicly anywhere, but why don't you just share what was the thought process behind getting nCore specifically started? What is the grand vision? How are you going to overtake the Indian gaming ecosystem?
Sure. Well, of course, it's been, I think, the right timing if you look at how gaming has come into the limelight in the last couple of years. So the timing couldn't have been better for us to jump into entrepreneurship. But looking back as to how this happened in our journey, personally, I have been in the IT industry for about 30 plus years now, and half of it has been in gaming. Back in 2005, and of course, before coming into gaming, I had done enterprise applications, digital signal processing, embedded systems, and then I was in EduTech where we built a suite of e-learning products and content and all that. And in 2005, I joined a group of people where we did this startup, and it was back in those 2005 when we were porting games and application on the J2ME and Brew phones, which were originally developed by the studio only on some 4 or 5 key profiles. So that company got acquired by a US-based startup called Digital Chocolate, and that was in 2007. And then I was heading the Asia operations of Digital Chocolate, scaled up the company to about 300 people in size, and we were progressing with the advance of technology where we moved on from J2ME to iPhone and the social media, the social platforms like the Facebook and all this. So we've grown with the industry, and we also saw different genres, originating and really becoming popular. And then in 2014, I went on to head Asia operations of another company called RockQ, and I was heading 2 studios, one in Bangalore and one in Bangkok, and we were handling the entire gaming business for RockQ. which had a portfolio of about 50 games. So, and then in 2018, when the company decided to, sell their gaming division, I, along with a few people with whom I'd worked for a long time, discussed the option of, jumping into entrepreneurship. And, by then I had set up, with the help of, my competent colleagues, the first ever mid-core studio in India. And of course, those days it was mostly the casual games and others that were being developed or operated in India. So we brought mid-core into India, and then it was actually a great learning for us to understand how mid-core games worked. And of course, before that, of course, Rockyo's business model was to not only develop in-house games, but also to operate games that were acquired by some of the world-class studios like Greek, Kabam, Disney. So that's how the portfolio grew to about 50. So we had some really good, successful mid-core games, and we took these games handover from the developers themselves, like Greek, Kabam, and all, and we had the freedom and liberty to deconstruct and reconstruct these games. And after taking over, we not only did the engineering content but also ran live ops, and then we were amazed by the way these games were built.
Hey guys, hope you're enjoying this episode. My name is Mayank Grover. I'm the founder of Outscale. I wanted to take a minute to tell you about our flagship game development program, where we take students all the way from starting to job ready in 6 months. We directly partner with over 100 plus game companies, where we help students directly crack into these companies by giving them the right kind of skills, both technical as well as non-technical, and getting them in front of these companies for interview processes. If you're interested in becoming a full stack game developer, please check out our website, www.outscale.com, or check the link in the description below. Now back to this episode.
So when you start buying and operating games from some of the best world-class studios, you can imagine what kind of knowledge you acquire, what kind of best practices you get to see. So by 2018, we had that rich experience, and since Rockyo wanted to sell the gaming business to some other company, and we didn't want to go down that path, we decided that we will, come out and try to control our own destiny. And that is how it started. And we wanted to initially bootstrap and offer live ops as a service. And we got started, and we worked with a couple of really well-known global products. And one of them was Vainglory, where Vainglory was the first MOBA game that was done and launched by our friends at Super Evil Megacorp. And we took over the game, and we were the developers and live ops partners behind it. And when we came out, it was myself and Ganesh, who was the head of products at Rockyo, and Tara, who was head of technology, Arindam, who was into business analytics, business intelligence and analytics, and Manohar, a pro in live ops. And I would say he's one of the best in India today when it comes to the knowledge of live ops around mid-core and other games. And that's how nCore took its origin. And
so like the nCore is like the Rockyo mafia, like people refer to it as the PayPal mafia, right? Like I think that's what I can see as shaping up. I don't know whether you guys refer it to as the Rockyo mafia.
Well, it's an interpretation, but it was just a simple thought where we didn't want to go down that path of becoming a part of another organization, and rather wanted to really put to use the learnings that we had gone through, and give it a shot at entrepreneurship. That's how it happened. And I hand over to Manohar to give his own version and his own interaction as well.
I think Mr. Dayanidhi summed up the whole journey, the last 10 years or so. So I joined Digital Chocolate a decade ago and have been since with the co-founding team of nCore. We are all from Digital Chocolate. So Digital Chocolate got acquired by Rockio, and then we came out of Rockio and built nCore. So he just explained the entire journey. So I would say we have been fortunate to work on world-class games, learn from them, and use the knowledge to build more games. So this whole journey which we are going through as nCore is going to be really exciting and adventurous for us. We are going to be building more games in the future. More about that later if needed. But yeah, so the entire journey in the games industry has been very rewarding for us until now, even with nCore. And we hope to do good games and provide players with quality entertainment.
Yeah, no, I think this is very interesting that, Manohar, you got pulled in on the conversation, because one thing that I see that people entering this industry, majority think about game development, game art, game design. They're completely oblivious to this thing that happens after a game is released, especially in today's world where this thing called live ops kicks in, right? So majority of the audience, if we take a poll, would have no idea that there is this thing called live operations and what does that really entail. So if you can take a couple of minutes just to give a brief overview of, in your view, what live ops is, what role does it play in the life cycle of a game itself, and how should young people entering into the space should think about it as well.
For sure. So when we talk about free-to-play games, especially free-to-play mobile games, retaining audience is extremely important for us as game developers, so that the players get to consume all the content which we have created. They get to experience what we have crafted for them. In order for them to experience all this, we'll have to retain them until they are exposed to all this content in the game. And live ops, I would say, is the most effective processes by which we can retain and engage players until they're exposed to all the nuances which the game can offer, and hence eventually turn the interaction of player and his time spent in the game as a profitable side for the business as well. So I would say live ops takes over once the game is live, and we actively interact with the game, study the player, study their behavior, and provide content in a way which maximizes player experience in the game, and hence maximizes the ROI of the time spent in the game as well. So in summary, it's actively engaging with the players and providing content through player behavior study, and make it a win-win situation for both the players and the game development team.
Got it. Perfect. So where would you fit in, like, and Dayanidhi, please jump in as well if there's something else you want. But like, since majority of the audience is technical in nature, or at least pursuing to be technical in nature, right? So where would you fit their specific roles? It seems like there's a lot of business here, there are a lot of analytics here, a lot of content production, a lot of art and design and tech as well, kind of thrown into the mix of live ops. So where would tech specifically fit in, and what would their key role be, right?
Tech in live ops?
Yeah.
So the live ops tools which we use are definitely going to be developed by the tech team, I would say. There are like solutions which are available in the market, which are sort of plug and play, but they are not customized for each game. And sometimes these solutions may work or may not work, but in-house live ops tools are always developed in a sense where we could enable them across multiple different games and multiple different genres well within the studio, and all our data resides within our control then. And while I say live ops will become active once the game is live, but the process of integrating live ops into the game starts way back in pre-production. So the entire team sits together, they all decide how content is structured, where the assets are stored, how they are being read into the game, if we have to update, how it happens, the entire server architecture needed to deliver this content without actually an update for the game, all that have to be designed, executed. So I would say tech would play a major role in creating and generating this live ops tools and processes as well.
Yep, perfect.
Yeah, well, and just to add to that, in my career, I have hired people across multiple roles, but just to cut the cookies here and directly come to the point, it's basically a development role that people can fit into based on what skills they bring to the table. And it could be in the current scenario, Unity or Unreal or based on C++, Java, and so on. And the other, of course, as mentioned by Manohar, it is the development of live ops tools. So live ops tools, if it is like a studio which develops multiple games, can be a horizontal layer that sits across games, and then in the background does activities like collecting data, crunching it, and then giving useful reports and so on. From live ops perspective, we used to do a lot of things like player segmentation. So you do player segmentation based on the spending, usual or average spending of the users. So you would have somebody who's more like spends in the range of, let's say, $50 to $100, and then someone who spends between 15 to 20, 20 to 10, and under 10. So we would categorize them as P1, P2, P3, users, and then try to cater to their requirement based on what kind of content really appeals to each category, each segment of players. All this can be done with a strong live ops tool in the background. And we also used to do a lot of wallet analysis. In a sense, if let's say we run a live ops event or a sale, players would typically spend money and buy the items and keep. You also need to come up with mechanism where you need to make them spend that money, right? So we used to analyze all this, look at the wallet size, and then run events which would make them spend that whatever they have accrued. So Manohar has led live ops where in some of our games we would run live ops, and then on that day we would make some hundreds of thousands of dollars just through live ops itself. And it used to be a very rigorous activity involving product managers, live ops specialists, monetization specialists, customer support people, and so on. So in the background, a lot of things happen, like, as I said, play segmentation, wallet analysis. We also do dynamic pricing, meaning when you see that on a given day, it is likely that people buy in-app good A, B, and C. And if all of them are priced at certain values, you bundle them together and make sure that you come up with a mechanism to consume them in the game. So these were called the source and sync mechanism. So you make the user source the goods, and also in the game you come up with events and activities and mechanisms to sync them. Only then you keep on generating revenue. So these are the kind of tools that only an engineering team can develop, facilitate, and keep on improving. And that is where I see engineering talent fitting in. And one last is basically where we typically have the DevOps, NetOps teams, where they keep monitoring as to how the servers are functioning, how the users are getting experience, especially if there are games that require monitoring. If they are concurrent players, playing live games, then you really need a team to keep on monitoring. Some servers may go down, or something may happen, so immediately the team has to jump in and take the necessary actions. So these are the three buckets into which I think the engineering talent can fit in. And I understand that currently you are offering training more on the game development aspect of it.
Right. Correct. I think as sort of the studios are scaling up operation, there's going to be more and more sort of demand for more live ops talent as well. Right now, we're not seeing that sort of at a large scale for us to have a dedicated program focus on it. But like it's kind of like, at least in my view, similar to DevOps in the tech ecosystem. As people sort of mature more into backend developers, they have the option of either staying backend or entering more DevOps, right? So kind of similar-ish path exists in parallel. But again, like then more and more industry matures, we'll have more sort of streamlined structures around how people can enter into more live ops versus this, right? But I think my key takeaway from there, and I think the most simplistic way of summarizing it for everybody here, is that if we have to reimagine Manohar's title, it would be like, show me the money, right? Right? Like essentially all like free to play game, you can put in a lot of marketing dollars behind, get initial installs, but then in order to make the users stay and actually spend to make it as a viable business, that's where live ops really kicks in and has to work with pretty much all functions within the company in order to make it really successful, right? And engineering becomes the core sort of fundamental part, right? So I hope tomorrow I'm going to see on LinkedIn, Manohar's title gets renamed to "Show Me the Money," something like that. Right? I think that'll be perfect. But cool. So I think from now shifting gear a little bit to the game thing and talking more about 4G per se. So I think there were a couple of questions on LinkedIn asking about the hype that the game created and how were you able to kind of manage the expectations. Slash, I know live ops again becomes critical here because you have a flood of users coming in. You need to make sure that you're able to handle those loads and all, right? So just share from a backend studio perspective, how were you able to sort of meet the expectations of users given ban of PUBG as well, and people desperately looking for an outlet, right, to shoot shit. So how are we able to, as the studio, both from a business perspective and then from an engineering perspective, and either of you can jump in on this as well.
Sure. Just to give you context, as we have repeatedly told, we never actually positioned 4G as an alternative to PUBG.
Happy accident, right?
Yeah, and we knew what path we were taking, and we had the Indian Army angle, and as you can imagine, Mayank, games of this size and caliber require a lot of development time going into them, and it is in June, July 2020 that we decided to develop the game. Of course, we were planning some mid-core games, and we were in a ideation stage at this point in time. But of course, then we started actually ideating around the Galwan Valley incident that happened, and knew that we want to come up with a game that portrays what the Indian Army goes through. So it was going to be really, really hard for us to put together a multiplayer game, within the timeline that we had thought of, and that is how the story mode or the campaign mode, came out in about 4 or 5 months of time. And we knew that is just the beginning, and we have to, move forward and get to the multiplayer version, and that is how then we went on to do TDM, and then we are working on multiple modes, and then the game will keep evolving, and it will take its own time, its own cycle to come to a level where it can be compared to other mature products in the industry. But to answer the rest of your question, I'll leave it to Manohar. Manohar, over to you.
Yeah, so as Mr. Dayanidhi mentioned, we had a very short timeline to go live. That's the reason. We know what players were expecting of us, but we also know what we were delivering and how the response is going to be. So we're not oblivious to what's happening. We are aware of what's going on. We are aware of what players are saying and what they're demanding. We will get there. We have like a roadmap plan. We have different modes in development in pipeline right now. We are gonna make sure we're gonna build a, how would I put? I was about to reference PUBG, but then I thought I'll not talk about PUBG now.
It's all good. It's anyways in a private conversation in so little community, right? So don't worry, we don't have million of viewers, so it's okay.
Our goal was never to replace PUBG, as I mentioned, right? So we want just a share of what the audience would spend their time on a shooting game. So if players are happy playing PUBG, if they play 30 minutes of PUBG, we would be happy if they would spend 10 minutes on 4G. So we are going to build a classic multiplayer shooter game. We are going to top it with very interesting modes. We are going to keep players engaged. So yeah, we are on the path to that. So yeah, if you have specific questions on that, I can answer.
So specifically, I mean, what, like from ops perspective, like was there any kind of special thought process given to the monetization strategies or anything from a product development perspective that was unique, that you might have not either seen in other games, or something that was new, experimental, that you guys were really itching to try out? Let's try this out. This is something that all the previous companies that we worked with didn't understand, and we're going to make this big, right? So was there something internal that people might not have gotten, but something that a creator puts in as elements of love in the games that they make, right?
So in terms of monetization, I would say we have chosen a safe path, because the cost of experimentation has to be justified at the end of the day. But we have ideas which we can experiment on, which we can test it out in a safe area before it goes out to the wider public. I mean, I don't know if I can give out more details, but yeah, if your question is, do you guys have any special strategies or ways to, or ideas to monetize? Yeah, definitely they are in the pipeline.
Got it. Perfect. But if you just openly putting it out there, if you need beta testers, do let me know. We have a community. I think when so Setunath, who's working with you guys, right?
Yeah.
He's one of our alumni. So I remember the day that the game launched, he was in the Discord community, and like 10-15 of folks from the community were all playing together and throwing bugs at him. Like, hey, this is broken. Hey, that's broken. So that was kind of fun to see as well, that, you know, the community kind of coming together and directly talking to an ex-alumni / a current developer on the team, and directly piping that feedback in terms of what they see was not working / broken on different devices and whatnot, right? So we can always kind of coordinate. I'm sure people here would be happy to play a hidden beta version that's not yet out in public as well. So as a secret perk, in some sense. But I don't know whether that'll be an ops challenge or not. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's not going to be a tough challenge. But before I confirm to it, we could use beta testers. We would need all the help and feedback we can get. Yeah. We can work something out probably.
Perfect. Awesome. I think there are some questions. I'll just see which ones. And I think Fuzzy is right now using Unity as the core engine, right? Like, and that's all the tech is currently based on that itself. So that one's pretty straightforward, and you about that one. So what are the main difficulties did you face while making the game? Things that you feel are lacking to reach up to that level, and any future plans specifically around it?
Right, especially around the story mode. We of course were working on art on one side, and it was not fully ready, and we had to do with the placeholder art, and we weren't really getting a good look and feel. So it was all like converging onto into December timeframe, December-January timeframe, and imagining how the overall final package product is going to be was a little challenging, in spite of us having handled hundreds of games ourselves. So we still managed because it was all like within a very short time frame that we were trying this. And then we also came across some issues like, of course, to what extent or to which low-end phones we can go, because we knew that if you have to penetrate, and if if you have to look at the pyramid of device spread, it is the bottom that really gives us a large user base. But it also comes with the challenge of making the game run, and also looking at how you can let's say load the resources and optimize the resources to work on low-end devices. And then if there is a possibility of doing dynamic loading rather than one time, which helps us manage low-end devices as well. And then we came across the challenge of devices getting heated, and if you play for 10-15 minutes, and because of a lot of these activities that happen, number crunching that happens, the devices used to get heated up, and resolving that for those batches of phones itself was also a challenge. So those were some of the key ones. Manohar, do you want to add?
Yep. So to add to that, issues because of Unity, I would say like Unity is like really a good engine. I mean, we don't have any issues with that. But sometimes the tools which we use to do prototyping or level designs, and then getting that to work with the other tools we are using. So that's been a little bit of issue for us. I mean, we figured it out, we solved it, but we could have saved time if those integrations were seamless, if they could like work out of the box sort of solutions. But yeah, I mean, no such tool exists which universally can accept everything else thrown at it, right? So
Yeah.
in terms of, are there any programmers who are working on the art side, tech art side in your team? Maybe it would make more sense. But yeah, in terms of shaders, what we use, there had to be a lot of optimization done on that end because of different lighting techniques which we have incorporated, which worked well on Unity and editor. But as Sir mentioned, when they got out, and when we look at the same shader techniques which we used on a low-end devices, hitting issues, right? So lag, FPS drops. Yeah, so those have been some of the issues which we are like, which we have solved to an extent, which we are still trying to optimize as much as possible. Our extreme step or extreme target would have been to run the game on 4 GB devices, which I don't think is happening right now. I hope we can get there because a lot of.
So is that at 30 FPS, 60 FPS? What is the FPS target range?
Yeah, so players would like 120 FPS, but I would say 30.
yeah. They might not have the screen to support 120 FPS, but they sure want a 120 FPS.
Yeah, I mean, we had got requests like gyroscope support, right? So some of the devices don't have gyroscope support, but they want it in our game. So stuff like that, we do get all these requests.
Yeah, absolutely. But generally, I think because all of these are very specific sort of hard technical challenges, right? When you have to pack bigger projects into smaller devices, load them dynamically, do a lot of like smart analysis in terms of when to load what assets, etc. Right? So this requires hardcore engineering skill set, right? So when you guys are sort of reviewing engineering talent coming in, and I'm sure you get flooded with a lot of engineering resumes, what kind of key things that you're seeing as a pattern that you would advise young folks to sort of work on and improve on across the board in order to get both not just accepted into your in nCore in future, but generally across industry, because you've seen across a bandwidth and a gamut of companies, right?
Yeah, so I would say not just make games, but try to solve problems. What I mean by that is, in Unreal, I think it's possible to pop the hood and go into the way and mess with the core C++ code and see what the engine can offer you. So try to make custom built solutions for yourself. Try to build tools which will aid other developers to do their work a little bit easier. Try to build tools which would help a game designer prototype ideas faster. So prototyping is always, again, a cost on the entire team, right? So the designer has to still write the spec. We'll still have to build the tools to prototype and iterate on the same prototype until we are happy with it. And then the actual development begins. So there is a lot of time and cost which can be saved if we have tools which can aid the designers. If we have tools built for the artist to just dump a 3D model and it gets broken into different LODs, and then those are read by the game. So all this tool development can also help. And I think Unity does support a lot of tool chain development. Explore that. We do get a lot of internship requests and a lot of fresh candidates who have built few games, who have built few clones. We go through standard interview procedure to hire them. But if they have built additional tools, or if they have solved specific challenges, which a lot of common, I would say, applicants won't do, that will spark our interest and we would probably talk more to them. So
yeah,
so I would advise.
Sorry, go ahead, please finish.
No, go ahead.
No, I was saying that generally majority of people just don't even know about this whole plethora of engineering that happens on the tool side, right? Like people are usually surprised when I tell them that you'd probably find like 30% of all engineering talent just focusing on tools and infrastructure stuff most of the time, right? Everybody wants to focus on the leap of faith mechanic in Assassin's Creed or the bullet time in Max Payne. Everybody wants to implement that key element that makes or breaks an entire game, but nobody thinks about the infrastructure layer that holds the entire game together, right? So tools programming gets heavily underlooked because it's not very cool, it's not sexy, right? So it doesn't get bragged about on YouTube, right? So I think that's where a lot of young folks miss out, but I totally agree. That's a very burning need in terms of moving fast and having stable architecture as well. So and then you want to add in some as well?
Sir, actually, I was putting my earphone on and I missed a part of the question.
I can repeat the question. So the question was mainly on like, because you're seeing a lot of talent apply to companies, not just nCore as well, but previously as well. So what is your sort of general advice for folks? How should they gear up their engineering skill sets to be successful in this industry?
Okay. Yeah. Definitely, I think Manohar has already answered. Just check where your heart lies. I mean, do you want to be a game programmer, or you want to be a tools programmer, or you want to be associated with the infrastructure that runs the game, and then play a role there, and accordingly pick up your skill. And the time is changing, and no longer you can be calling yourself as just a front-end engineer or a back-end engineer. We typically prefer full stack engineers who can do both, and that's going to be an advantage. So always try to think from the perspective of being a full stack engineer and acquire your skills accordingly. And I would also recommend besides these core engineering skills for game programming or tools programming, you also learn the other tools that get used not just by the engineering team but also like the art team, for instance. It actually becomes a big advantage if you say you really know how Photoshop works, or like say 3D Max works, how Maya works, and you can also understand the programming sometimes that goes while doing this art and animation. It becomes an added advantage. So you can actually speak to the art team, you can speak to the design team in a better way than just being a pure engineer. So if possible, if you can blend your skill sets as, let us say, 90% or 80% pure engineering skills, and also 10-20% of the tools that are used by the other teams, other functions within gaming, that would be an added advantage. If you also, let's say, for instance, understand how AWS works, that's where we deploy, right? That's where we deploy, and how you keep spawning new servers, and then how you handle additional concurrent users and all that. That becomes an added skill that we would like to see over and above your pure programming skills. That's my piece of advice, and that's what I would like to see in someone I'm hiring. If two freshers look alike, or let's say two junior programmers look alike, what differentiates them is this extra skill that they would have acquired. Just to share what we tried in our previous company. We ran this program called RockU Plus at RockU, where while a lot of our colleagues were super focused and improving in one particular primary skill, we encourage them to acquire a secondary skill. And the secondary skill is not necessarily in engineering. We said, you can go into live ops, or you can go into art, and try to acquire a secondary skill. So that is how we saw the entire organization became more empowered. And we could see that, almost everyone was specialized in two different functions that a studio typically requires. So I would say in the early stages of your career, of course, remain focused on your core skills, but also try to add on something that will make you more equipped to speak to your colleagues from the different departments.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely spot on. So the more technical jargon here is the T-shaped skill set, right? That's what I normally talk about, where the horizontal bar is 20% of everything, but vertical bar is 80% of one thing, in this case being engineering, right? So exactly what you said, right? Like the 80-20 split, and the classical lingo is just, you should be a T-shaped person, right? So you should be able to talk to a designer, an artist, a sound guy, animator, etc., so that because this industry needs those collaborative kind of folks, right? And that's where I think this industry is very unique. I know we are overshooting on time, so I'll close off with one last question just to be very respectful of both of your time. What are you seeing as the future of this industry, specifically from Indian talent perspective, right? Like the ecosystem in terms of gamers is changing, but then us being on a more niche side of game development, how are you seeing the ecosystem change and what future kind of holds for Indian game developers?
Sure. I would say this decade belongs to gaming, and we all should feel fortunate to be here, at the threshold of something big happening, and in some way associated. Either you are trying to enter into the industry, we're already here in the industry and trying to grow along with it. And then India definitely is, even the global map is at a very interesting phase. It is at the point of explosion. There are generations that are seeing how gaming is evolving, and here is one particular generation which has grown up embracing gaming as a lifestyle. And I'm sure when all these young folks start earning and they have some spending power, they would definitely earmark some kind of money for this kind of an interactive entertainment. So we know, be it movies or television or music, it is kind of unilateral, whereas only game has this characteristic of becoming interactive. You can build your own universe. You can build, your own world with something that is, typically where you are fully involved in building it and running it and owning it. So, as I said, this decade belongs to gaming. You will start seeing, the stigma associated with gaming going away. When we grew up, if you said you are more into gaming, you're like, you're doing more of time pass and all that. But I think times are changing. Like how today the Indian families don't complain about kids going and, let us say, attending coaching for cricket, the physical game I'm saying. That's not a taboo at all. And then they see that okay, it is looking promising, and our kid may get to some place because cricket as a career is lucrative. The same will happen to gaming. Gaming is going to be, as some of the stalwarts in the industry have put across, is going to be bigger than movies, television, and music put together. That's how big it's going to be. And let's take pride in being a part of such an industry. And you will see a lot of things will change. Now we have seen how esports is becoming popular. You will start seeing revolution in terms of the hardware that runs the games and the genre of games that will evolve, and the kind of complexity, technology, that will be associated with games and running the games, the data behind it and all that. And people will really, really enjoy spending money, and the wallet sizes of players will go up. That will be really, really encouraging for the gaming industry.
Yeah, perfect. Manohar, any closing thoughts on the future of this industry?
I would specifically address game programmers, since you guys are a niche trying to build young people get into the gaming industry, right? So there has never been a better time to learn game development, if you ask me. So there are a lot of resources and engine capabilities, a lot of different choices of engines, a lot of different programming languages, free, of course, for any of the students to learn and engage with. And also, if you're getting to the industry, do more game programming. But if your heart is not into it, you can always explore a graphics library programming, right? So OpenGL, you can do stuff with that, or you can get into NVIDIA as a developer there if you have programming skills, right? So you just don't have to be a game programmer or a gameplay programmer. So you can be an engine developer too if your heart lies there. So you don't have anything to do how the player jumps, but it's your job to make sure when a gameplay programmer calls it, you enable it for him to do all the physics and stuff, right? So there are a ton of ways with which programming can help in your career as in the gaming industry. You can be part of every department. So stick to it, keep learning, explore different areas. And if your parents say gaming is not going to be good, or if you can't make money, I would say the film, music industry, all other entertainment industry does not even make half the revenue of what games are making combined in terms of absolute billions made. So gaming is there to stay. With access to internet, with access to better gaming devices, we will have more players coming in. We will have more games being made in India. So this is the right time to get into game development if your heart stays there.
Perfect. I think I should have brought you guys on for like day one, because you're literally just like reinforcing a lot of the thoughts that I usually share on the first day of the call when people have these doubts. Oh, my parents are not letting me enter in. I want to, but then my parents are not allowed. So I think this is perfect. Awesome. So thanks again, both of you.
Mayank, I just want to steal a minute or two to
Absolutely.
answer two interesting questions asked by your team.
Sure,
One is
please.
about whether the big companies like Google, Apple, bring gaming ecosystems. Trust me, as I said, this decade belongs to gaming. Any big players cannot really stay away from gaming, and you already probably are seeing the signs of it. Be it Netflix, Amazon, Google themselves, Facebook has a huge gaming division. So all of them are going to look at gaming as a huge pie in the chart. So none of these big players will miss out on having gaming, because they know that there is going to be a good contribution of revenue coming into their revenue streams. So in one way or the other, they will definitely be associated with gaming, and there's a bright future for anyone who is working in this industry. And to answer the other question about what's the scope for people who want to work abroad, I mean, thanks to this pandemic time, without a choice, the world has become a global village. The boundaries are cut, territories are cut, and we ourselves are looking at talent from, of course, India and anywhere outside India as well. It doesn't matter where someone lives, and as long as there's some kind of an overlapping time and can independently work and also collaborate with the team, then the location doesn't really matter. So I already see trends where even in foreign studios are hiring talent from India and vice versa. And I see this trend continuing, and perhaps you may not even travel to the origin country of your company, but you may sit locally here and work, and probably have a chance to travel and meet physically people there. So unlike what it was in the previous decade, this decade you can dream to be part of any studio, any company in the world, just by virtue of the skills that you possess, something that any studio globally finds your skills relevant. So dream big, you can definitely get there. The timing is good. There are no barriers or boundaries.
Yeah, I think location and degrees are the first things that got kicked out the moment world was forced to go remote, right? So
Absolutely.
nobody cares where you are, as long as you're able to hop onto Zoom and voice calls and video calls and collaborate on all the tools, right? That's all that matters, right? And for developers, like Git and other sort of source control is like the holy grail. What else you need, right? So
Absolutely.
so 100% agree with the sentiment. And I think on the previous one, if Tesla is hiring game developers to integrate games into their cars, and Flipkart is building a gaming ecosystem within their app, right? Like e-commerce and car companies are hiring game developers, I think the future is ample bright. We don't have to worry about that, right? So
Absolutely.
perfect. I really appreciate you picking up those questions. So thanks again for stopping by, and apologies for overshooting. Really appreciate you guys spending the time and sharing the wisdom with everybody. Would ping you guys again in a couple of months' time and bring you guys back in, probably on day one next time, so that most students hear the same thoughts, not from me but from you guys. So love this conversation. Thanks, Noor. Thanks, Dayanidhi.
Thank you, Mayank. We really loved interacting and taking up the curated questions. definitely would like to come back and interact more, and perhaps even have some technical people from our team, talk to your team members. We'll stay in touch, and it's a big family of gaming industry here in India, and happy to support each other, and we'll do our bit. And I hope our talk today has reinforced confidence and ignited some interest amongst your cohort, and would be happy to come back and do more sessions. Thank you very much. Thanks for hosting us.
Thank you, Dayanidhi. Thank you, Manohar. All right, take care, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. We have had fun.
All right, bye.
Bye. Bye.